Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, I wish to thank Professor Mahindra Gaud, the founder, director, Foreign Policy School, Bharat, Jaipur, the heritage city of India, for having invited me to present my views on India's middle path in a multipolar world. Basically, with an aim to understand the India's foreign policy, the very fact as to why the founder has actually institutionalized this platform. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'll do is, in the course of my talk, I'll speak for about 25 to 30 minutes. If there is a slippage of 5 odd minutes, kindly bear with me. And I'll restrict myself to the time as far as possible. Initially, I'll start with a little bit about what is India, the geostrategic importance of India. Then I'll come to why and what. Why should we study the foreign policy? Being a military man, I'm not a diplomat, nor am I from foreign service, but I have been a very avid reader and keeping in touch with the geopolitics, geoeconomics of the world. So I am a very keen observer of what is happening around the world. Try to learn. It's not my part of the subject. So after having covered why and what, we'll touch upon the changing world order. And in the changing world order, we'll briefly talk about multilateralism, multipolarity, the middle path which we are choosing. And I very strongly recommend this middle path till such time we are economically viable, meaning my viability at least 10 to 15 trillion US dollar economy. And thereafter, assert, not that we are not asserting now, our strategic autonomy. And after that, the last part of my talk would be the way forward. Essentially, I'm recommending uh, what we are already doing. It is to internalize the logic of a multipolar world. Ladies and gentlemen, let's quickly go over time now. Is 7:21. I'll try to finish up by 7:51 or so. And basically, all that I wish to start with is that India is home to one-sixth of the world's humanity. It's well known, it's very axiomatic, and its people aspire for a prosperous and safe future in which they can pursue their dreams without fear. And this, you all would agree, that it requires the state to create a conducive external and internal environment in which India occupies its due place in world affairs and is shielded and protected from global and regional risks and of transnational terrorism. And people should be able to live in peace. That is what my primary aim. To live in peace perhaps will become the central point of our subject that we are going to talk. And we are all mindful of the uncertain geopolitical environment in the world. The threats of transnational terrorism, a troubled neighborhood. To our west and north, India has unsettled borders with ongoing proxy war in Union territories in J&K. To our east, besides the ongoing insurgency due to inter-tribal conflicts, unemployment, inability to compete with non-tribal businesses, illegal migration from neighboring states and countries leading to the competition of resources and land and further demand for cessation of the autonomy, and to our south in the Indian Ocean, that is becoming an arena for strategic rivalry. Now, why am I highlighting this at the very outset is, unless we are clear about the physical mass, we will not be able to understand where is the need, why and what. Why should we study foreign policy? You see, in addition to what I have just covered, there are ongoing internal conflicts constantly on the boil, threatening the socio-economic fault lines of the country. Talk about the religion. As you all know, we have 9 religions, out of which 4 are global or international religions. We have 25,000 or more sub-castes based on occupation, 5,000 primary castes, 5 are major castes. We have almost about 2,600 roughly around ethnic tribes. We have languages, scheduled languages listed at 22. Two are national languages. Unofficially, informally, if you dabble into the subject, you will come across there are more than 1800 languages in India. Look at the number of political parties, more than 2000. So, likewise, and we have 28 states, nine union territories, sorry, 29 and 8. So look at the diversity that we have. And uh, uh, issues such as if you go into the dialects, the number of languages, every people say every 1 kilometer you'll find a different dialect in a country. So these are the kinds of challenges that way. But more than that is, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, let me talk about the geostrategic importance of India. As you all know, that India is the seventh largest country in the world with 2.3% of Earth's landmass and 17.99% of world population. We have sizable natural resources, a geostrategic location, and regional status as an economic anchor makes us a principal stakeholder in the stability of the region. Today, globally, modern day India represents the largest democracy in the world with a seamless picture of unity and diversity. Also, let me highlight that it's noteworthy that India has an apolitical and well trained military, third largest in the world. With all these attributes and the strong record of a responsible and cooperative approach, India is being increasingly looked upon to play a larger role in the region and global affairs. Now, having said this, ladies and gentlemen, let me very quickly bring out the sphere of interest is very important because I saw quite a few video clips. You see, the geostrategic interest needs to be understood before we start talking about the foreign policy. You see, this is my conviction and my understanding. In past 10, 11 years, India has actually, you know, made a quantum jump in its milestones and achievements. Earlier, when I did National Defense College course way back in 13, 14, we used to be taught by the, the foreign services officers that our sphere of influence on the geostrategic interest location in Asia and Indian Ocean region, the area of strategic interest is large and extends from Malacca Strait in the east to the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea in the west, and from the Central Asian Republic in the north to Indian Ocean region in the south. It is my conviction, after having studied the subject for past couple of years, I am convinced that our sphere of influence has actually got extended from Persian Gulf to Mediterranean, and from Malacca Strait it has gone towards farther to the east, towards the South China Sea. And because based on this, all our resource, our capability enhancement has to be carried out, and our efforts have to go into collaborate and cooperate with the countries. And that is where would be the genesis of our foreign relations. So if you have understood this much, then we go to the next part, ladies and gentlemen. I would talk about why and what. In why and what, very quickly, why foreign policy, the primary objective, the attributes like national security, economic development, regional and global peace. Very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, I'll skip the why foreign policy by stating only one line that foreign policy per se is a dynamic tool as per my understanding, and it is used to navigate the complex and interconnected world, safeguarding their interests which contribute or while contributing to a more stable and a prospering international order. It is very crucial towards the nation building as it shapes how a country interacts with the rest of the world, influencing its national security, economic prosperity, global influence, promoting values, global challenges, etc. But at the center of it, again, as a student of geopolitics, I personally feel ultimately the test of coding lies in eating. It is my understanding, having gone around the world, if not more, at least quite a few, I would say, and try to learn different living habits and the way of life of people. I personally feel the test of pudding lies in the quality of life of our men in the country. What matters is how we live in a house, in a home, what we eat, how we talk, what is our discipline, what is our way of life. It has got a direct and indirect bearing with what is happening in our neighborhood and beyond the neighborhood. So, therefore, I would come straight to the primary objective of India's foreign policy is to safeguard its national interest, including national security, economic development, maintaining regional and global peace, and it involves the India's sovereignty, promoting economic growth, fostering peaceful relations with other nations. Additionally, it aims to be a responsible global actor, contributing to international peace and security, while also protecting the interests of its citizens abroad. National security and sovereignty essentially uh, gives us a mandate to protect India's borders and territorial integrity. Let me cover here that we have a continental border almost running over a distance of 15,500 kilometers. That is towards Pakistan and towards China's side. And these are a major portion of these are unsettled borders. So if there is something, if I had to kill it or nail it here itself, I would say that settlement, early settlement of border with our neighbor should become one of the priority mandate of the task that the present dispensation of the government should be focused on. Otherwise, what happens is when you do not settle a border, it gives lots of leeway to salami slicing and transborder activities, which are inimical to the growth story of a country. And countering terrorism and extremism, I don't have to explain. We all are experiencing it. Operation Sindoor is still on. It has not got finished. We know the neighbor to our west, how deeply it is involved in promoting and sending transporter terrorists to attack our people, innocent people. We have lost 26, 28 of them in the recent past. Also, the foreign policy has to give us some kind of a security, energy security, and the food security, and the centrality of the foreign policy of every country. It varies from country to country. In India, our centrality, I would say, is the strategic autonomy in foreign policy. Now, what is strategic autonomy? So, most of us, we all are students in some form or the other, except for the professor, is the most learned man amongst us. And I would say the strategic autonomy, what it means is the independence, unbiased, unprejudiced course of action taken by the country in keeping with its national interest, not taking a decision which is going to be biased or under duress or pressure. That is what I understand. And when we talk about the economic development, we have to create a favorable external environment for domestic growth. And let me also outline the facts and figures here. What I am looking at is today, the India's per capita in 2025 income is 2,700 US dollars. Our target to achieve by 2030 is 4,771 US dollar. By 2047, we are striving to achieve a target of 20,000 US dollars. Why? Because when you go into the international financial standards of international financial organizations, the classification of countries as far as the PCI, the per capita income, to be a developed country is bottom line is 13,845 US dollar, ladies and gentlemen. And for that, we have to achieve 7 to 8% growth annually and until we achieve a target of $30 trillion by 2047 or earlier than that. There are other issues, regional and global peace and stability. But I would like to stress on a factor generally we tend to gloss over is protecting the Indian citizens abroad. Now, India, as on today, has got the largest number of Indian diaspora. It was 31 million, I think, 2, 3 years back. It has gone up to 32 or 33 million. The remittances have crossed $125 billion per year, and it's going up by leaps and bounds. It's likely to cross 175 billion, a lot of people say. And we need to ensure the safety and well-being. Whenever I go abroad, I make it a point to interact with the Indian diaspora, get to know what their problems are. Like when I was in Dallas in USA about 7 days back, thereafter in Sunnyvale in California, plus I was in Middle East and Europe. When I spoke to them, the awareness level about Operation Sindoor, the hammering that India has done to Pakistan was not known to our own people. So diaspora has got a role and responsibility also towards fighting the information warfare that Pakistan was good at, and promoting India's soft power is very, very important. When I was traveling in Africa a couple of years back along the west coast, Mithun Chakrabarti is a very popular hero. From a little child to an old man, they all know his dance numbers and they speak good Hindi. When I came to the East Coast Africa, most of the children found that they were talking in the Punjabi language. So I found it difficult. I had to brush up my Punjabi to actually speak to them. Ladies and gentlemen, principles. Adhering to the principles when we are talking about foreign policy, like non-alignment, maintaining an independent foreign policy stance, then non-aligning with any particular military bloc, peaceful coexistence, promoting peaceful relations, cooperations with all countries, respect for international law, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, world is one family, promoting a sense of global community and shared responsibility are some of the very important principles. Non-alignment, anti-imperialism, international cooperation. The main pillars, like I have already covered, are the strategic autonomy, multi-alignment, and soft power. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we also must be mindful of the fact that there are five basic principles which most of our speakers have covered in their talk. Um, they call it punctual mutual respect, mutual non-interference, mutual non-aggression, mutual benefit, peaceful coexistence. But before I go ahead and start talking about the multipolarity and the multilateralism, let's quickly, very briefly cover about the global strategic environment, which will do us good for a larger perspective and better understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, the current global strategic landscape is marked by a growing polarization among the major powers and the global groupings, such as China, Russia, United States, the European Union, on all G20 members. The primary drivers of this polarization are not ideological but political and economic. The individual major powers are asserting sovereignty and national priorities over the commitment to international cooperation needed to address global challenges in the 21st century, on which humankind's very survival depends. Further, the global security situation is increasingly becoming unpredictable due to intense competition among major countries, enhanced military expenditure, and push for strategic capacity in nuclear, outer space, cyber, and military defense. I'm just back from Europe, ladies and gentlemen. While uh, prior to Donald Trump 2.0, their percentage of expenditure in defense used to be less than 2%. Now, major countries in Europe have raised it to 5% or more. Some of them are going about doing it in an incremental manner. Japan has, for the first time, increased its rate of expenditure in defense. So has Korea, Philippines, and almost all the countries. China is known to actually hide the expenditure. And look at the conflict which is ongoing in Central Europe, Russia and Ukraine, the Middle East, what is happening in Iran, and what is happening in our backyard. That is the Indian Ocean region, our extended standoff in progress, and the internal challenges, what is happening in Bangladesh, the Doklam, Manipur. So, such like issues are live and very, very important to be kept in mind. You see, there has been a traditional way India has been responding to the global demands whenever such kind of conflict kind of situations have been coming up. But very important thing I wish to highlight is that the Russia-Ukraine war is such a significant turning point, which has actually demonstrated that the world order is changing. Now, what is the world order? Let me just explain to you very briefly. You see, from post the Second World War till 1991, disintegration of USSR, we call it as Cold War 1.0. Post disintegration of Soviet Union. We call it as Cold War 2.0. Now, there is a distinction between the Cold War 1.0 and Cold War 2.0. Cold War 1.0 had a bipolar world. One was for the communist rule, the other was for the Democrats. Post disintegration of USSR, there is a uh, the superpower unipolar world. We expected the unipolarity to assert itself and dominate the rules-based international order. Somehow, there are very prominent signatures of the superpower showing as a declining power. So, what in the process has happened is because the power balance has started shifting to different places in the world. There are more than one power where they called it the polycentric world. Like Russia, you have like China, you have India, like Brazil, South Africa, such like countries, India, Iran, Turkey, these like countries have started asserting, but not necessarily can we call them as the epicenter of a power. Epicenter of a power should have the capacity and the capability to influence, influence countries dependent on it or not dependent. So when you say influence, that means this country should be heard by the countries which are allied with it. So all the countries that I have listed out, they are yet to achieve the status of multipolar or some kind of identity which will be able to pose challenges, but they do have potentiality of growing up in times ahead to pose a challenge to the unipolarity. So when that happens, China as a country has actually shown signatures of firstly economy, the military might, the technology in past 30 to 40 odd years. They have grown at a rapid rate of growth and they have been able to reach a target, a phenomenal target of almost 19 trillion and pose a challenge to the existing superpower that is the USA. And the basic primary aim of China is to revive, rejuvenate the Middle Kingdom concept by 2049. That is the time they would be completing 100 years to redeem the century of humiliation. That is what the target they're looking at. India, as far as China is concerned, is no threat. They do not consider India as a threat. Their primary preparation is to prepare to contest the superpower and showcase the country, their Middle Kingdom, as a global power by 2049 or before that. Now, all this I'm trying to explain just to highlight one aspect that India has rejected the American and European pressure at the United Nations to condemn the Russian invasion. It is very well known to you, all of you. It has further turned Moscow into its largest oil supplier, purchasing its cheap oil, dismissed the perceived hypocrisy of the West. The challenges of the COVID pandemic, rising prices of fuel, fertilizer, and food grains, and increasing geopolitical tensions have impacted the developmental efforts. Mind you, 125 countries of the 134 that make up G77, they agreed with the takeaways of the Voice of Global South Summit in January 2023 under India's leadership of G20 that the key issues include the fragmentation of the international landscape, shortages in grain exports, oil and gas, fertilizer as a result of the Ukraine war and terrorism. And India's push for human-centric globalization, countering the first world's view of expediting climate change goals at the cost of development of the global south, has launched India's foreign policy onto a high platform as G20 president, one which made the government reclaim the true meaning of non-alignment in the wake of Ukraine war, where it has refused to take sides. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to the next part quickly. So I would like to say a few words before we go into the beginning of the New World Order about the post-Cold War unipolar system transforming into a polycentric one. It has already become complex and less predictable. Something like those who have studied the historical perspective of geopolitics prior to First World War, this used to be the kind of a situation to draw parallel with. And now we had large number of countries which are showing up their heads as multipolar world, and that is when things become unpredictable, it leads to lots of conflict kind of a situation. The polycentric international system, as it emerges, suffers from polarization and hybrid threats. The hybrid threat, it could be threat from the non-state actor. Now with the advent of the technology, you have cyber attack, you have electromagnetic attack, like the way the Hamas attacked on 7th October 2023, and the Mossad, they attacked against the Hezbollah ICOM attack and the pager attack. So these are the new form of 6G warfare which are manifesting in the world. Ray Dalio, ladies and gentlemen, most of you would have read his book, The Changing World Order. He actually makes a very compelling argument in the book to say that the world order is now rapidly shifting, indicating that he had enough of evidence to suggest that the world order is changing from unipolarity to multipolar world. After the disintegration, like the way I have explained, of the Soviet Union, US was trying to create a unipolar world, plunging the world into a permanent conflict, much against the rules-based liberal order expected to have dominated the post-end of the Cold War era, especially in the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, the global politics has historically been dominated by multiple poles. Being at the peak of its power in 90s, the US in recent years has exposed its signs of declining unilateralism. Let me very briefly cover that pandemic was the turning point in addition to the Russia invasion into Ukraine, which came later. It was the beginning of the sign of a new world order. The post-pandemic world order is very different from the world before it. And as far as India is concerned, there are three different changes which have come about. The first one is GDP-centric view of the world to a human-centric view. Second, the world in recognizing the importance of resilience and reliability in global supply chain. And third is there is a collective call for boosting multilateralism through the reform of the global institution. Like I have brought up, highlighted about the turning points. One is the invasion by Russia into Ukraine. Hamas attack also could be taken as the next one of reckoning. While I say this, I just also highlight one point that for a word from the G20, because G20 provides me an example, classic example of the subject which I am going to dwell on. Uh, 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 the genesis of the G20 was at the end of the last century, ladies and gentlemen. The major economies of the world got together with a vision of a collective and coordinated response to the economic crisis. Its salience grew even more during global economic crisis in the first decade of the 21st century. This is around 2007-8, the Lehman problem that actually cropped up. But when the pandemic struck, the world understood that in addition to the economic challenges, there were also other important and immediate challenges impacting humanity. And by this time, the world was already taking note of India's human centric model of development. So, therefore, and for India, mind you, which is a founding member of G20, formed in 1999 as a grouping of finance ministers and central bank governors, it was upgraded to summit level in 2008 and which hosted the G20 meeting in 2002. The world has come full circle. Today, India is amongst the leaders whose word counts. The better outcome couldn't have been wished for. Why am I highlighting is that the driving philosophy of India's leadership in G20 was actually the one earth, one family, one future, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And having said this, the 18th G20 summit produced the New Delhi Leaders Declaration. It is India's policy mantra of multilateralism, multipolarity, and the middle way. And that won the hearts and minds of the members of the G20. If you study the G20 and compare it, you find that India's contribution as a leader, as president of the 18th G20, stands out that despite the very critical challenges, particularly the Russia-Ukraine war, India managed to pull it off in a successful manner. And there was a complete unanimity and consensus on the call that India was giving about the multilateralism. Why am I highlighting this? Is the desire to support multilateralism is what drove the concessions made in order to achieve consensus in the G20. The Western Bloc, comprising of G7 countries, the European Union, the US allies, Australia, and South Korea, made the larger part of these concessions by agreeing to the removal of direct pointers to Russia in the operative paragraphs that referred to the war in Ukraine. The only mention of Russia in the statement was a positive one pertaining to the Black Sea Grain Initiative. This I am highlighting. Also, let me highlight the para 47 of the NDLD, the New Delhi Declaration, propounds the view that the global challenges of the 21st century can only be addressed through rejuvenated multilateralism, reforms, and international cooperation. Now, come to multipolarity, although I have alluded to very briefly. The growing support for a multipolar world, one which India has been in the forefront of, came as a stunning success of the G20 summit. This is the punchline of my talk, ladies and gentlemen. It has often been said that in the post-Cold War scenario, US has tried to build a unipolar world, China has pushed for a bipolar one, while India has sought a multipolar world. Global South, made up of more than 125 countries, may not compare in wealth with the North. It is increasingly becoming a voice to be heard, a voice which resets the priorities on issues such as development, climate change, health, digital divide, price rise in food, fuel, and fertilizer. The global South is now seen as the third pole, and many global powers are coming to terms with its worth. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to the last part of my talk, thereafter, the way forward. The middle way. India's success in the G20 actually owed itself to its decades old tradition of abjuring alliances and following a middle path on global discord. This had meant making compromises at times, such as the Indian government's refusal to criticize or cut off ties with Russia or to invite Ukraine President Zelensky to address the 18th G20, but it put India in a better position to be able to strike a balance between global South and North, East and West. It is this bridging role that is most needed in a time of global polarization. It has got counter arguments, ladies and gentlemen, like the way the Operation Sindoor is panned out, like the Middle East conflict is going on. There is a lot of criticism about against the present government. I have my response as per my understanding. I think the present dispensation of in Indian governance actually highlights how important political stability actually matters for effective foreign policy for that anything that we talk about. Now, last but not the least, ladies and gentlemen, the way forward, my recommendation is primarily based on internalize the logic of a multipolar world while following a middle path. My recommendation is to take everyone's attention to the 51st G7 meeting, which took place in Canada. And India is not a permanent member. It is not a G7 member, but now a regular invitee. What I want to highlight is the talk which took place between Donald Trump when he made hasty uh, return from the meeting, went back to USA. He spoke to a prime minister for 35 minutes. And so in that call, uh, our prime minister, he called to reaffirm a couple of issues. India's unambiguous doctrine, that is terrorism is war, and third party mediation, particularly US led in South Asia, is unwelcome. And therefore, compelling Trump to hear it out nicely and clear Indian message to amplify to Munir, who was having lunch in the subsequent follow-up days. Another thing that took place is that the patience actually took dividends in foreign policy. And you all are aware of our relationship with Canada. There's a, I am on to track to dialogue with a lot of countries. So we have been successful to bring a thaw, and there was a successful meeting between our Honorable Prime Minister and Mr. Carney, the new leadership of Canada. The quiet diplomacy and track to actually pays a lot of dividends. And in all this, if I have to summarize, the government of India, which has internalized and adopted that middle path, the logic of a multipolar world has to follow three steps: engage where interests align, back where sovereignty is challenged, anchor diplomacy in national interest rather than global validation. While I have said it, it is not at the end of my talk. Time is up, I suppose. Yes, I've just taken 2 more minutes, but I wish to share my experience. When I met very important economic leaders and the CEOs in California, in the Bay Area, there is one thing which I want to share. Ultimately, when I said the test of pudding lies in eating, in the global brokerage Morgan Stanley, in his New India, why this is India's ticket report in an article, why India, he happened to be, his representatives were present there. And there was a talk on the subject when I was there, why India will become a superpower by 2047. There is an article of 10th July 2024 that said that the country is poised for an economic boom in the coming years, despite all challenges, pandemic, conflict there in the Eastern Europe, in Middle East, and it's driven by factors such as offshoring, manufacturing investment, energy transition, advanced digital infrastructure. The drivers are expected to propel India to become world's third largest economy. Now we are only fourth largest in the stock market by 2030. Over there, the main speaker, he highlighted one or two lines which I wish to share. As per the report, this particular report, the global economy is being rewired for a multipolar world, influenced by geopolitical events like US-China trade tensions. You all know about the tariff war which is going on. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Hamas attack against IDF and thereafter counteroffensive by the Israel forces. And now the conflict is on with by Iran. The cost of sanctions. Sanctions have not affected, rather they have enhanced the resilience of Russia. Pandemic has also shifted the focus from just in time to just in case logistics. Further, if I may add from my side, that the conflict in West Asia is, in addition to all the above factors, have accelerated to move towards globalization and a multipolar world. That brings me to the end of my talk, ladies and gentlemen. Should you have any questions, you are most welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, General, for a very exhaustive, comprehensive coverage of the events, the concept. And now I will open the house for question answer session. Students are requested not to put questions which are beyond the scope of this topic, but confined to the main topic, that is rural world. So please start your questions one by one. First, introduce yourself, and then the questions in a very simple manner. Come on, be quick.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir. I'm Meenakshi
Yeah,
Manish.
yeah, Meenakshi, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So I'm a law student and I am very interested in international relations.
Good.
So I want to know in terms of multipolar worlds, because it opens the scope to a lot of the states becoming potential superpowers. So in this sense, do you think what is your thought on India taking a middle path or being quote unquote neutral? Uh, do you think in order to become a solid power, uh, we would have to take some stance, whether affirmative or negative, a clear stance in some way or another, even if it is because we do have historical relations with like Israel or Russia or any other such situation? Do you think we'll ever have to take a yes or no stance, or we will be able to always be neutral?
Absolutely. Meenakshi, what you say, you have made a very strong point between the neutral path and taking one side. Taking side is, uh, as of now, in my opinion, is going to be problematic. I would strongly recommend. A lot of people have been taking my views, people sitting in the South Block. Um, it is always wise to be very cautious when you take sides. When you take side, for example, like Turkey has been taking side of Pakistan with regard to J&K. It is the same Turkey for which India had sent its disaster management team when the earthquake had struck. Did Turkey pay any heed to that particular thing? It is the Turkey which was supporting Pakistan during the Operation Sindhu. It did not. So these are the kinds of contradictions that we come across. So my recommendation is you have made a very strong point, and we need to follow the current concept of middle path or the neutral path till such time we are economically viable. There are too many challenges in our country, Meenakshi. You will bear me out that if you close one chapter, there is another thing before you realize is opening up. So you close your eyes, there are multiple things which are challenging. Our own people, they are bigger challenges than the adversaries across the border. So therefore, what I would say that until our country reaches a target of 10 to 15 trillion, or why 10 to 15? Let's say $7 trillion. Why am I saying this is our country took 60 years to reach a target of $1 trillion. It took 7 years to double that and become 2 trillion by 2014. And it was close to 3 trillion by 2019. And today we are 4.13. Okay, so look at the way more the money, faster it multiplies. Our economic viability has to be kept as a central factor before you start asserting and taking sides of any of the geopolitical churns and the challenges that come about. This is my recommendation because we are not in a position to be isolated. Today, do you know that India is the only country. I know you will have a counter argument that there are not enough supporters in favor of India. Well, nobody supported us when we supported Russia. We stood by Russia. That also amounts to taking sides. It has a logic. Today, all over the world, majority countries that I have gone to, India occupies a very special place of deference and reverence. We have no enemies except for China and Pakistan and Turkey of late. For some reason, they're falling apart. Okay, so these are the evil forces of evil. India is the most popular country. It enjoys a high degree of credibility and reliability and respect all over the world. So therefore, our Prime Minister, our leadership as of today, he is enjoying a TRP rating of more than 78%. So doesn't it actually give you dividends? Pulling back 20,000 students in the middle of a conflict, I have not seen as a military general. I have not seen ever happening in any conflict in the world. 20,000 from there. I have evacuated people from Iraq, from Yemen, and I know the difficult situations. Now we are getting our students back from Iran. They have opened up the airspace for India. It cannot be possible without best of understanding and having good relations. We have good relations with Iran, we have good relations with Israel. But that point will come wherein you will be able to show your teeth and assert your, flaunt your muscles in times ahead, but not now. I hope I've been
Yes.
able to answer your question to an extent.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Next question. Come on, be quick.
Hello,
Next
sir.
question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
This is Archika. I'm sorry, my name is not flashing. First of all, thank you, sir, for this lecture. It's been really insightful. So, my question is more of a observation. Like India's multilateral approach and strategic autonomy, we can see that very well in BRICS. Like we know that we have a very tensed, hostile situation with China, but we're still able to maintain a group and a sort of an understanding with China to counter Western influences or US in particular. But then again, we also see some negative aspects like when, as of now, India has not accepted the BRICS currency that we were developing, the BRICS nations as a whole. Like they are still kind of supporting, they came out with the statement that they're still kind of supporting US dollars and the transactions in US dollars. So I guess there are some negative effects also for the multilateral approach, like somewhere our autonomy is getting affected. Is that so?
Okay, fine. So, good question. I couldn't get your name. If you could kindly give a name, please.
Archika. Archika.
Sanchita. Okay, that's an excellent question that you addressed. Okay, let's start. Take a cue from the BRICS currency. You see, you have to understand that US dollar as a reserve international currency. There are three currencies. I hope you all know about it. One is the US dollar, second is the euros, and third one is the Japanese yen. These are the three accepted, internationally accepted currencies which are prevalent, being practiced for commercial transactions in the world. The major dominance, I would say, is by the US dollar. And when it started a long time back. There is a Brent law called in 1973. Okay, so petrodollar. So with that provision, I'll not go too much into detail. There was a stage wherein the dollar used to enjoy a dominance of 86% as a reserve currency in the world for commercial transactions. That kept on coming down during COVID pandemic. It touched a percentage of 56%. The economic experts, they started saying that if the dollar dominance in the world goes down below 50%, that will be a great dismal picture for dollar to remain as an international reserve currency. Okay, so it is not that easy, let me tell you. 56% is pretty high. When you talk about the BRICS currency, it is one thing is talking. The other thing is actually occupying a stage of that dominance. It's not that easy. So India may have made any statement trying to balance out and maintaining good relations with USA. I know Donald Trump, his transactional way of response and behavior, and he has been threatening that BRICS 100% tariff will be imposed on all the BRICS countries because they are working toward de-dollarization, or they are using their own domestic constituency or country currencies. So likewise, those kind of things will be there. But your question actually pertains to uh, the multilateralism and balancing out such kind of issues which are sensitive in nature. My response, quick response to your question is, your national interest is paramount. Anything which is going against the national interest, that your foreign policy should be so architected, should be so designed, and you have to play around with your words. Foreign policy, the diplomats, they they are trained for this. You have to use the right word, right expression at the right place. That is how you navigate through these complex situations. Only then you can come out of this successfully without harming the national interests of your country. In my opinion, I personally feel that keeping good terms with the countries is actually an option which actually pays out. And there are different means and methods. In the United Nations, many of you may not be knowing that Africa as one entity enjoys a maximum percentage of voting weightage, 28% of the total voting weightage. So everyone is actually rushing. Everyone means China and India to try to have our pound of favorable response from Africa. But we don't have that kind of money. Today, our economy, GDP, is just about $4.13 trillion. China has crossed 19 trillion. US is already crossed $30 trillion. So where is 4.13 and where is 19 point something, close to 20 trillion? It is almost 5 times the size of India. So until that's what I'm saying. The primary benchmark based on which we can actually start asserting or start upgrading our response metrics as far as the foreign relations are concerned should also be driven by the economy and not by anything else. Till then, the soft power play a very important role and central role while navigating through such kind of complex situations. I hope I have been able to answer your question.
Yes, next question. Next question, please.
Hello, sir. This is Shrestha, sir. So, as we have seen, the world is becoming increasingly bipolar and many multipolar elements are rising. So, is strategic autonomy still viable as a foreign policy approach for India when the world is increasing in a very polarized global order?
Okay. When I say polarized system, what I mean is that each country is actually focusing on its national interest. They are not coming to a convergence, platform of convergence for the common challenges. What are the common challenges? Common challenges are you have climate change, you have terrorism, you have pandemic, you have the water rise is taking place, poverty elevation. These are the common challenges. So when or the renewable energy, those kind of things. So the countries are not coming together. They are making commitment that $100 billion will be given in so much time, but the contributions are not coming. So that is where I'm saying what it means is actually implies is polarized. The world is polarized. They are all going ahead in the direction of the respective national interest. They are not chipping in when it comes to the common challenges. Now, second point you made is about the bipolar. The bipolar world was during Cold War 1.0, okay, till 91. After disintegration of USSR or Soviet Union, we started having a unipolar world, that is the USA as a superpower. So when USA is a superpower, there are many examples. Because of paucity of time, I cannot actually give you any elaborate on the examples. They, you take the example of Iraq, take the example, look at the way they had a hasty withdrawal from Afghanistan, take the example of Libya, take the example of Syria. Anywhere US has gone with its boots on ground or the forces, they have not had any kind of a successful kind of a operation. They have not had a dignified withdrawal from respective location. They have actually gone back with many body bags which were avoidable. They have not been able to leave behind a successful, stable, and peaceful environment which was earlier expected prior to their induction. So therefore, what I'm saying is that in the unipolar world, when you talk about the strategic autonomy, what is strategic autonomy? Strategic autonomy is maintaining your balance in keeping with the national interest of your country, independent foreign policy. It should be it should be independent of what others are saying. Like USA wants us to join their camp. Is it fair on your part to join USA? Did they come to your help when the 71 ops was going on? If you have seen the movie, when Mrs. Gandhi went to meet Nixon, what kind of treatment was given to her? Okay, so it is only Russia which came to our rescue. It is a Russia is our evergreen friend, and with Russia we'll maintain relations. So what it means is we remain multi-aligned. Whichever country, that's why I made those concluding remarks, that you align your requirement, engage where your interest align, push back where your sovereignty is being challenged. Now, Donald Trump is challenging the sovereignty of India in many ways, directly, indirectly, by tariff method. And so that's what Narendra Modi, by having spoken to him, clarified that no mediation is allowed. As far as India and Pakistan problems are concerned, we have actually pushed back where our sovereignty is being challenged. He cannot actually probe it. He cannot take India as a pushover. He cannot hyphenate India with Pakistan. Third and most important thing I have said is anchor diplomacy in national interest rather than global validation. These are the points which I made in my comments. I hope I have been able to answer your question. Next, please.
So thank you very much, General. You have replied to all the questions to the best satisfaction of the students. They must be thankful to you. And before I conclude this session, I would like to just remind everyone, just as you said, and I support your statement, that China wants a bilateral world and they don't want multilateral world. There was a time, I'm reminded of an article by Indrani Bachi in Times of India way back in 2014, that there was a trilateral platform available to US, China, and India to discuss their trilateral issues at an annual conference. And for 1 or 2 years, the conferences were held on annual basis. But later on, China said, "Why do you insist on this trilateral conference? Let us talk to each other about world affairs. Keep India out. So don't insist on annual trilateral conferences." This is, I mean, something which speaks about China's mind. They want bilateral world, and that's why they said that the US should talk to China only about world affairs. So this is, I think, in support of what you had said about China's stand on the world affairs. So thank you very much, General. I'm really thankful to you for having spared time after a busy, schedule abroad, and you have very kindly agreed to our request. We hope we will be able to approach you whenever it is required for the benefit of the student. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was a treat for me, despite the limited time, to have got this platform. I find Rudhi Prasad Nanda, there is a question regarding the strategic autonomy, which we have, to large an extent, we have responded. It's on the similar lines. And also, he's talking about China, especially amid increasing global polarization. It is all about balancing everything. And what Professor has spoken, bipolarity is yet to be fully established. China is not a developed country, it is still a developing country. It needs time. Technology requires honing, technology also requires maturing. And maybe next time, when you give me a chance, we'll speak about specific case, talk about the global or the geopolitics and geoeconomics. And those of you who are fond of reading, you may like to read a book, War by Other Means, Geoeconomics, or Tool of Statecraft. This is written by, if you Google up, you'll get the name of the author. And this tells you that how US has lost out the geoeconomics as a tool of statecraft, whereas China has won the war without fighting one. Second book I would recommend is Monsoon, Indian Ocean, The Future of American Power. This is by Dr. Kaplan, Robert Kaplan. If you read the book, it tells you that in 21st century, the growing commercial basket of the world will gravitate towards the Indian subcontinent. India, as on today, we have 500 million consumers who have the capacity to spend $12 or more. China has got around $700, close to 800 million. We are likely to overtake China by 2035. We'll be reaching a figure of 1.35 billion by 2035. So because of this particular thing, the commercial basket will gravitate towards Indian subcontinent, primarily India. Therefore, it remains a primary attraction as far as the economics are concerned. So that's all. Thank you so much, Professor, for giving me a chance. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who have any more questions, you are most welcome to contact me by mail or by contact number. This can be collected from the professor of the team, or you can speak to me directly if you wish to. And otherwise, look forward to next chance next time. Thank you so much, Professor. Good night.
Thank you. And with your permission, I would like to close the session.
Thank you.